If it doesn't work, in the midterm, you can even see midterm as, or the short term is perhaps up to 6 months or so, something that you can really tangibly foresee. The midterm can be a year, 2 or 3, depending, and long term is really 5 to 10 years. Where do you plan to be? So that's a focus that in your action plans, even when you're going to write your action plans after this course, focus on this. What can you do in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term? Short term, the best you can do is to have an early encouraging response to the program or an initial engagement. You get on the map, you start to make contacts with different agents, find out the initial reactions of people to your issue, and in the midterm you're getting much more actively engaged. You start to learn from all the facts that are around, from your partners, and you start to build commitment with your partners, whereas in the long term you really expand. The purpose is to really expand your influence and to actually reach your outcome challenges, those decisions that require a lot of work. The exercise that we're going to do today is choose 1 or perhaps 2 if you want, but if you do 2, then you need to make 2 ladders. Basically try to work in a timeline and write up the different, here on top you basically describe the desired behavior that you would like to see, the desired change of your political target. Your political target, what do they need to do for you? And then here is basically the different steps on how to get there. Also identify your progress markers, like at which point in time have I achieved progress, so that you can measure yourself, like am I doing well, am I not doing well? What you can do, this is perhaps useful, is that by every step at the bottom you can actually write each and every activity that lead up to the behavior change, and then on top you actually write up the desired behavior change. So an activity or an output, if you like, and then here the desired outcome or intermediary outcome or intermediary step. So on top more the behavior, how are you doing in terms of impact, and here how are you doing in terms of things that you have under control. If possible, and this is an important chapter in the end, the risks. If you implement certain activities, there's always our thinking is behind it. What are the risks, what are the threats that can happen along the way? What can come out of the blue from external factors? I'm sorry? Right. Things can happen that disturb your plan. If you can anticipate them, you can include them in your plan. And if they are really things that you do not have control over, well then it's best to identify them and to see if there's anything that can be done, or otherwise to and to realize that it might happen. Security issue you cannot predict, but it can completely disrupt a process, and you will not have control over it. If you like, the purpose is really to be aware of, okay, I'm setting out my course, I'm going to organize a range of activities, I'm planning to achieve certain impacts and ultimately my my outcome, and what can interfere. Now the timelines that we have developed are already who had a very clear timeline, they already had specific meetings. They could also indicate progress markers. Those meetings, the outcomes of those meetings can lead to your outcomes. So is that is actually the exercise clear then? So that you formulate, you can even, perhaps it's good if you formulate at least 2 or 3 outcomes and then pick one and develop a ladder of change. You can do it in whichever way you want, because as long as your own logic is there. The reason why I actually start with outcomes is because no, for those who are familiar with logical framework, logical frameworking, most of the time they actually start bottom up. And what is it? Like this, and then there's the risks on this side, the risks. So then the way you reason is, if I have conducted an activity and I have taken care of my risks, then I will have achieved an output. That's the way you reason in a logical framework. If I have produced, if I have attended this and that many meetings, and the mayor has actually shown up, then I have achieved impact. There's a lot of assumptions there already. If I have achieved impact and have taken care of my risks, I have achieved my objective. That's sort of the planning on logical framework. The risk with this is that you stay within your own confined project or program idea. Now that has been the critique internationally from donor agencies, and they've come forward with what is called theory of change, and they started to actually work top down. They said, we are here working with governments, and we are going to look at a certain sector, and for a sector determine the major changes, outcomes, impacts that we would like to see happen in a country, top down. So then they come up with, for example, for youth, they would have come up with perhaps better access for youth to schooling facilities, or youth, what else did we have here? Lack of information. So youth having more access to information. Lack of participation. Youth being much more engaged in civil society issues. Big outcome statements. And then they would start to look at who are the partners in our country that actually contribute to any of our outcomes. So they work top down and broader. So it is up to you how you want to do it, but you have to be aware that if you stay within your confined program, that you that there is more at stake elsewhere. You see? That's just an elaboration on. Try that. Try to define 2 outcomes or 3. Take one, and one outcome is actually going to be this. With one outcome you have a political target and you would like to achieve that outcome. Try to define then how you would like to arrive at that particular outcome. Right? Well, is it clear or is it difficult? Or yeah, clear. Progress markers, and this is where we come already very close to the next chapter on monitoring. How are we doing? Progress markers will give you an indication: am I achieving my objectives? Activity. If you talk, I mean, you can also work according to the logical framework if you like. It's the same thing in the end. You conduct an activity, and an activity has an output. And on top, you can then assess, did we have impact on it or not? You can conduct another activity that leads to another output. onwards, onwards, onwards.